Instead of focusing on winning arguments, we're teaching the basic fundamentals of sales and marketing and how we can use them to win in the world of politics, teaching you how to meet people where they're at on the issues they care about. Welcome to The Brian Nichols Show. Hey there, folks. Brian Nichols here on another fun-filled episode of The Brian Nichols Show. Yes, I am, as always, your humble host, joining you from our lovely Cardio Miracle Studios here in sunny Eastern Indiana. The Brian Nichols Show is powered by the best heart health supplement in the world, Cardio Miracle. So if you want to learn how to lower your resting heart rate, lower your blood pressure while improving your pump at the gym, stick around. We're going to talk about that more later in today's episode. But first, we're digging right into the heart of today's topic of conversation, and that is, will we be greeted as liberators? I've been hearing that narrative for the past 20, 30 years, and yet as I keep looking back to the outcomes of these foreign interventions, not only do I not feel we've been greeted as liberators, but dare I say, we've made some things worse. Today, we're going to look at a microcosm that is the country of Syria, our involvement there, but also how that extrapolates forward to other interventions like what we've seen in Afghanistan, Iraq, Libya, and of course, what we're all talking about today over in Iran. So joining me here on the Brian Nichols Show to discuss all that and more is Connor Vasile. Connor, welcome to the Brian Nichols Show. How you doing?
Good morning. I'm great. Thanks for having me.
Great to have you on the show, man. Looking forward to digging into all things foreign policy and yes, U.S. intervention making things better. Good question there, I would say. But before we dig into that question, do us a favor. Introduce yourself here to the Brian Nichols Show audience and your focus on foreign policy.
Hey, everyone. How you doing? I'm Connor Vasile. I am an author, writer, and political analyst. I write for Young Voices. I look at all the new trending news out there regarding American foreign politics, domestic politics, economics, and we're trying to make sense of just everything that's going on in the world, especially with all the new breaking news feeds on Twitter.
There you go. All right. Well, Connor, let's talk about some of this breaking news we've been seeing here on Twitter, and that is we will be greeted as liberators. That's what I've heard. And like I said in my intro, for the past 30 years, that's been the narrative. We walk into Baghdad, they're going to treat us as liberators. We walk into Damascus, we'll be treated as liberators. Walk into Tehran, we'll be greeted as liberators. So I've heard this narrative, Connor, and yet, I don't know, man, just those pesky facts and outcomes, right? I don't really see the correlation between the argument and what we actually get from an outcome. So you wrote this awesome article over at Free the People, and I'm going to go ahead and share my screen for the video watcher here. And for the audio listener, you can check this out over at Free the People, the site of our good buddy there, Matt Kibbe. But the question being asked, can the West stop propping up dictators? We look at Syria. You had Bashar al-Assad, love him or hate him. Most folks either are indifferent or probably hate him because they just don't know, or they have been watching the mainstream news. He was the worst guy in the world. He was accused of bombing his own people, gassing his own people. So there was a very concentrated effort from the United States to back up these rebels to overthrow the Syrian government. We didn't do so hot back during the Obama administration. Then, fast forward to the end of the Biden administration, and just seemingly out of nowhere, we see this insurgent group take charge. They throw Bashar al-Assad out of the way, and things are better now, right, Connor? Right?
Yeah, everything's peachy clean. Who cares? As long as he's out of the picture, no one really minds, right?
Yeah, that's the argument. Tell us why that's goofball.
Right, exactly, Brian. So back to your point, how for the past 20 plus years, you've heard this idea that we will be treated as liberators. We are spreading democracy through the world because, hey, what's better than some Coca-Cola and a hamburger, right? Turns out global politics and foreign policy is a little more complicated than that. I know, shocking. How dare I? So what we see basically in Syria is only a microcosm of what has been happening in the past 20, 30 plus years of U.S. foreign policy. We can go all the way back to Reagan with the Contras with the Mujahideen in Afghanistan, all the way up now with all the problems happening in the Middle East, specifically Syria, but also now we're having the problems between Israel and Iran, which I'm sure we'll get to in a little bit here. So the problem that we're seeing here is that when it comes to American foreign policy as an interventionist state, America has been very keen on funneling taxpayer dollars into foreign conflicts with the hope, with the intention of leveling the playing field or bringing down the tension, so to speak. However, what U.S. foreign policy analysts and proponents usually forget is the culture and the history and the traditions that have fueled these tensions in whatever plane of war, whether it's Ukraine and Russia, whether it's Israel, Iran, whether it's Syria and local factions. What they fail to understand is the historical, cultural, and religious elements that actually underpin these tensions. And that's why we keep seeing these habitual overthrows of power which just end up in death and suffering.
So let's dig into this, right? Because this has been the area where I think there is the intentions and then there are the outcomes. And we really need to stop focusing so much on intentions and actually address the very real outcomes that we're seeing and use those outcomes to help us understand intentions and then decisions we'll make in the future. I think this is something, and by the way, this is an argument I have a lot with my friends more on the political left, is that intentions of a policy by themselves are not enough to justify said policy. We need to go back no further than what we just saw over the past quarter century. You have the war on poverty. That didn't work out too great, but Brian, it's gonna help get rid of poverty. It's gonna raise the standards of living for everyone, right? Outcomes, no, not so much. War on drugs. War on drugs. We're gonna have a drug-free society. Nobody's gonna be doing drugs, right? No. Oh, wait, what? We have all these different fentanyl, heroin, cocaine, marijuana, which is, everybody looks at marijuana as like the gateway, right? But like, we're not a drug-free society. War on terror. We started the war on terror in the 2000s post 9/11. Is terrorism gone? No. Actually, a matter of fact, we're talking about terrorism like to a very scary degree in many instances, talking about Iran getting a nuclear bomb. Like, okay, so I see this argument from a lot of our friends, again, on the more political left, but I'm just going to generalize just more in this do-good mentality. The outcomes of the intentions don't really correlate. So how much of this, to your perspective, is based on people just trying to do good, lead by example, whatever the argument may be, versus almost head in the sand, ignoring of outcomes?
Well, Brian, I always like to say the road to hell is paved with
very good intentions, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So you have people on the ground, right? The political activists who, many of them, granted, they do genuinely believe that if we throw enough money at the problem, if we're going to stick with foreign policy for a second, that all the world's conflicts will just poof out of existence. War on poverty, war on drugs, same exact thing. What do you have under the Biden administration? Just to go off on a little tangent, we had harm reduction programs where local government was giving literal crack pipes to homeless people because that would somehow make drug use safer instead of exacerbating the problem. So we see this clear delineation between intention and actual results, like you said, right? The problem with your intentions, right, is that a lot of these individuals have a very idealistic, altruistic view of the world. Oh, if everyone is just like us, then it'll be totally okay, right? Even though America is systemically oppressive and racist and violent. We don't need to get
Our
into
institutions are systematically racist. Come on, Connor.
I'm sorry. I'm still learning. Educate me. So that being said, what we have here is not just being altruistic, not just being an idealist, right? Because like I said in my article, what we have in Syria is not just regime change. Fine, Bashar al-Assad is out of the picture. But now we have what is the precipice of a new Sharia state, of an extremist Muslim dictatorship that is basically murdering minorities such as Christians, Alawites, and other groups indiscriminately in the streets. I mean, we just saw this past week during the Grand Liturgy at a Greek Orthodox church, there was a bombing in Syria as well. With
Coptic Christians, they're number one target as well. We had another buddy of ours here from Young Voices talking about that. Yeah, it's no bueno at all.
Exactly. And at the end of the day, what makes matters worse is that no one is really talking about the consequences of this foreign policy. Because sure, you're evil, bad guy that's out of the picture, but at the end of the day, people are still losing their lives to this day as we speak in this moment. So what can we do to actually better the situation instead of just funneling our money into it?
Well, and let's talk about that right now. There are two arguments, and one of these arguments might be a little controversial, Connor. So hold on to your butt, right? But like one of the things, and this is really the crux of your article, is the idea that we're funding and supporting these really just extreme dictators in many instances. But on the other side, and this is an argument that definitely gets a little bit more controversial, but especially when you compare it to the current events we're seeing today, is saying, well, what are we doing in Israel? Are we propping up not necessarily a dictatorship, but a country in the Middle East that is causing more mayhem than not? And I've seen, look at all the countries we outlined in the intro, right? You go through Afghanistan, Iraq, Syria, Libya, Iran. These are all countries that Wesley Clark, former General Wesley Clark, outlined in that one that whistleblowing report where he was like, listen, I was just in a meeting and I heard these are the countries we're going to be going after. And you start to peel back layers of the onion. It sounds like, and the data points to, that these are the countries that have been more or less on Israel's wish list, right? To go ahead and either destabilize or to take down for, call it the protection of the greater Israeli country. Maybe it's something else. I don't know, right? And this is an argument that's really reared its ugly head here in 2025 because we're watching firsthand, not only as Israel is now targeting Tehran, which is the capital of Iran, to take out their nuclear program, but they're doing so with the backing and the military support of the United States. So what is it, Connor? Is it just, us supporting and propping up these shell dictators in these very radical extremist countries, or is it just our blind blanketing support of Israel that's actually leading to a lot of these issues in almost a roundabout way? You're trying to stay sharp, whether it's for work, learning, or just not forgetting where you left your keys. Been there. But lately, the mental fog hits hard. And brain fog isn't just stress. It's often tied to poor blood flow and low nitric oxide levels because your brain needs oxygen just as much as your other muscles do. Because without it, you're slower to process, less focused, and more fatigued. And that's one of the many reasons why I trust Cardio Miracle. Not only does it boost nitric oxide for heart and circulation, it supports cognitive clarity, focus, and even mood regulation thanks to its unique blend of L-arginine, CoQ10, vitamin D3, and antioxidant-rich superfoods. So if you're tired of feeling mentally cloudy, give your brain what it's craving. Click the link in the show notes, scan that little QR code over my shoulder, or head to cardiomiracle.com/TBNS, which will give you 15% off your order. Just look for the little note on the website saying you're shopping with Brian Nichols. One more time, that's cardiomiracle.com/TBNS. And now, let's get back to the show.
Exactly. So this issue, this specific topic in regards to supporting Israel specifically, is very nuanced, right? And before you get all the haters about to go into your comments saying,
you're anti-Semitic! Yeah, no, I'm
exactly. Like, oh, you hate America, you're not a patriot. Mark Levin's going to come knocking at your door. You're not a patriot
for not supporting Israel. Come on, Brian.
Exactly. So before we go into that discussion, joking aside, I think it's safe to say that no one wants Iran to have nukes, right? I mean, this is a genocidal fanatic theocracy, right? Sharia state, which wants not only the eradication of Israel as a country, but also pretty much the entirety of the West, us included, in America. So just strategically speaking, I don't think anyone looks at Iran saying, oh, we should give them nukes, except for probably the Biden administration, which gave them billions of dollars during the past 4 years, who inadvertently had that money fund groups like Hamas, Hezbollah, other terrorist groups, because Iran is widely known as one of the largest, if not the largest, terrorist backing states, because Iran itself is too weak or incompetent, whichever you want to argue, to actually carry out these attacks themselves. That being said, that's the level playing field, right? We understand that this is a fanatical, bloodthirsty state that should not have any sort of nukes or ICBMs or anything of the like. We all agree that. Good. Kumbaya. This is the second part, though. What we're seeing here is an exacerbation of military conflict, right? Trump praised, he tweeted or X'd out or whatever it's called these days.
We need a better verb for that, by the way. Tweet was so easy to see, to say, but I digress.
Exactly. The X doesn't sound that good. Oh well. Come on, Elon. Get your stuff together.
You must. That sounds dirty, but
yeah.
Yeah, no, we'll leave that there.
PG. Let's stay PG now.
60% of the time, it works all the time. Sorry.
There you go.
All right, continue. Sorry.
So basically, the issue here is that you see an exacerbation of conflict. He said that there was a ceasefire. Everyone was championing ceasefire. End of World War III. All the AI memes are now down the toilet. No one's going to war, right? No one's being drafted. Except that's not really what happened, right? A couple hours later, you saw some either miscommunication or intentional firing of missiles from both sides, right? Mm-hmm. You have Israel firing missiles at Tehran. You see Iran firing missiles back at Israel and other parts of the Middle East as well. So, and Trump was very pissed off at this. Obviously, he couldn't.
They don't know what they're doing. Yep.
Exactly. So that kind of highlights this idea that U.S. interventionism and even U.S. diplomacy, how we see diplomacy as Americans, it just does not work in the rest of the world. How do you civilly debate or conduct diplomacy with a person who wants you dead? Right? At the parliament structure over there in Iran, in Tehran, they have what seems to be very routine chants: death to America, death to Israel, death to the West. These aren't people you can necessarily be diplomatic with. That being said, what we're seeing with reasonable fears that Iran could potentially gain nuclear weapons, this has been going on for the past 20, 30 years, saying, oh, Iran is at the precipice of creating nuclear weapons. And we just learned with the recent intelligence briefings from this administration that they are soon to be able to create nuclear weapons. Soon is arbitrary. So there's definitely this fear-mongering aspect of, oh, if we don't act now, then there will be nukes. Look at Ukraine. If we don't act now, Russia will invade Europe, even though he had Kiev surrounded and he didn't do anything about it. It's this fear-mongering that is very effective, regardless of whether you're coming from the right or from the left. It does work, and it gets people riled up, and they see these missions, these ballistic strikes, these strategic initiatives, as they're calling them, in what's happening in Iran. They see that as okay because it's better than the alternative, which is nuclear war.
Yeah. Well, when you can create the outcomes like in your own brain as like the worst case versus the more likely case, your gut instinct is almost to always go and try and mitigate the worst case scenario or outright eliminate that as a worst case scenario. And I understand from a foreign policy hawk perspective. And by the way, like for folks who maybe are listening to the show today and they're our first time listener or a new listener, we take everything from this show from a sales perspective, because at the end of the day, everything is sales, right? It's about incentive structures. It's about emotions where you're making buying decisions, but understanding the problems we're articulating and how do we solve these problems. And what ends up happening is, from a sales perspective, a lot of the do-good hawks who are trying to prevent the worst case scenarios, they're layering in these different solutions that end up exacerbating the very issue that they're trying to avoid happening. And this is the part where I know a lot of folks in the more America First camp, Connor, are really coming down to is like, listen, I get it. I get that there are concerns of these countries overseas, having nukes or going to war or committing, acts of atrocity. And that's very bad. Like, we're not going to say it's good by any stretch. But when we look at how much bandwidth we have to be able to effectively address the problems in the world, but also the problems we have here at home, a lot of people are seeing the reality that we can't, in this case, do both at the same time effectively. We can't, on one side of the aisle, say we're going to be the world's policeman. We're going to try to stop all these bad players in the world of foreign policy from doing bad things. And then at the same point in time, say we're going to make America, from a domestic standpoint, as strong as possible. We're going to help the people who need help. Like all the more bleeding heart arguments that you would hear. We just had Susanna Petit on the show back last week, and we were talking about homelessness, right? And so you hear all these issues that are happening here in America, but we end up seeing that we try to do everything at once and be able to accomplish nothing. So I think this is where many folks who are listening to the show today, Connor, they're kind of sitting in the camp of, listen, I don't want Iran to have nukes, right? I agree. I don't want Russia to potentially be a nuclear threat to Ukraine, right? But even at the worst case scenarios there, when we objectively place our priorities, it looks like we are trying to make the world a better place at the expense of America and the American people. Is that argument a fair argument, or are people far too, I guess, focused on their own country? And I say that as somebody, I'm very much pro-America first. I understand, though, I don't want it to be just America first, and I don't want it to be America only. But that's where a lot of people are heading. Does that make sense?
Of course. I mean, in a way, that's the reasonable assumption to make, right? Seeing everything, all the noise on social media and politics, you're either in one camp or the other. There's no room for compromise at all. That being said, being completely isolationist in such a globalized world and globalized system is just it's ridiculous. It's impossible. It doesn't make any sense. It's unrealistic.
Nobody knows how to make a pizza. Book. It's a kid's book from Julie Borowski, which is in the spirit of iPencil, right? Which is that? Was that Hazlitt who wrote iPencil?
I think so, maybe.
Okay, yeah, but the idea that there are so many different pieces to the puzzle that you don't know where they all come from, like the graphite, the wood, the rubber for the eraser, the metal for the tip of the end of the pencil, like. In Julie's book, it's more of a kid's book, right? Like the pepperoni, the crust, like the ingredients into the crust, the cheese. Like nobody knows where all those little pieces come together, but at the end of the day, they make something really good, delicious, and yummy. It's pizza. And this kind of goes to the whole global conversation you're outlining here. Like there are so many things that we have. Like we're having a conversation right now using technology, like that would only happen due to being a global society where we can get bits and pieces of the technology, of the raw materials to make the things we need to do this very interview. Like otherwise, just to pretend that we can do everything by ourselves, head in the sand here in America, I think that's just a fool's errand, but I digress. I'll let you continue. Sorry, I don't mean to derail there.
How dare you? Okay, I'm
sorry.
writing up for that. No, that's a perfect point as to Hazlitt's metaphor, right? So in that sense, like Israel is our ally, right? We have treaties with them, we have agreements with them, as we do with a variety of other countries. If we backed away from those,
Leonard Reed, sorry, it was Leonard Reed.
Leonard Reed, okay,
yep, perfect. My bad. Sorry, libertarians. Sorry, continue.
So we have allies. Obviously, we're going to support them. We understand the value of having good foreign relations, right? So in the case of what's happening in the Middle East right now, if Israel is being attacked, they can and should defend themselves in order to protect themselves, their people, and their safety. No one is denying that. Those who do are, quite frankly, ridiculous. They're living in la la land. Same thing with any other country, right, in the world, if they have a defensive war and operations to defend their people. That being said, America, like many other, I was going to say empires, but for sake of argument, yes, we're a de facto empire, influential at the very least, have throughout history spread themselves too thin. Mm-hmm. We can care about other people in the world, other groups and other nations, and the atrocities that are happening there, but we have to make our bed first.
Yep. Jordan Peterson. Gotta clean up your own damn room first.
Beautiful.
Thanks. Just channel Kermit the Frog. You'll get to Jordan Peterson sooner or later. Or channel Ray Romano from Everybody Loves Raymond. There you go.
There you go. Hey, that's good. I'm going to practice mine. So at the end of the day, we have a lot of problems here in America. And I'm not going to give some like feel-good statement like, oh, if we just come together and help each other out as Americans, it'll all be hunky-dory. That's not the case, clearly. We have a lot of problems right now. The issue that a lot of Americans have, and particularly at least half of the MAGA group right now, and then you have other public figures like Representative Thomas Massie, other Republicans, right? They're basically saying how, listen, we're giving billions upon billions of dollars to these states or to these actors throughout the world who, at the end of the day, they're not changing for the better. These situations are not improving. It's just a cesspit of tax dollars going into nothing. Yep. And we've been doing this for literally decades. So if we're repeating the same thing over and over again with the same results, but expecting something else, it's insanity, right? So I think Americans are just so tired and fatigued at seeing a government administrations throughout the years say that they're for the people, say that they're for Americans, but then completely just divest all their attention, for lack of a better word, into foreign affairs, which is granted still important, right? We still want to make sure we're in a healthy relationship with the world. But at the detriment of actually fixing our problems, which is very doable, it's just a kick in the teeth at this point.
Running a small business means adapting on the fly, hiring, scaling down, shifting teams based on seasonal projects. But most phone systems, yeah, they lock you into a set number of users and then make it a pain to adjust. And on the contrary, that's where Level 365 shines. Add or remove users anytime. Month-to-month plans, scale up when you need it, scale down when you don't. It's flexibility that actually matches how your business works. No headaches, no overpaying for empty seats. Just phones that move with you, and that is what makes Level 365 different. Yeah, here, I'm going to pull this up. Oh, there it is. Okay. And this is this is an old chart. This is from 2023, right? But just for folks to be able to see this, right? For the audio listener, I'm showing the national debt by year. This goes through 2023, third year of Biden's presidency. Back, let's see. Can you see my cursor on this? Oh, I'm not even sharing anything. Good grief. Hold on. There we go. All right. So here we go. If you were, can you see my cursor? No, you can't. Okay. So if you look like right towards the end of the Obama administration, 2012, I worked on a congressional campaign, and I remember there we were, just above like $16 trillion. And Connor, that was like the biggest deal ever. We were like $16 trillion. Here we are today. This number is it just shy of $40 trillion now, Connor, or is it above 40 trillion? Do you know?
I have to double check, but
gross that we're even having that question, right? Like that's how much we've gone up in less than 13 years. That is not only unsustainable, it is crippling us. And to see that there are so many people who are just like, oh, well, shucks, like we just got to keep on keeping on, and ignoring the fundamental reality that we are between a rock and a hard place here. Like this is not good, and this is not sustainable. I forget the metric here. Let me pull this up really quick. I'm just curious. The percent of interest on our national debt per year. This is from our good friend over at Perplexity AI. I'm just curious what we're spending. So right now we're spending around 5% of our budget, which rounds out to around $952 billion just on the interest. If we got a credit card and you know that you have to pay that much money on your interest, you think you're going to stop spending as much? I would hope so. What do? We say, watch this, pedal to the metal. Let's roll. Let's keep spending. And I think it was Congressman Massey, the congressman you mentioned earlier. He had this was back in 2021, I think it was. He voted to rename one of the bills for the spending bill to be the Kicking the Can Down the Road Act. I don't know if you remember that, but like that is the epitome of what we're seeing here. And guess what? It's our generation, Connor, and our kids who are going to have to pay for this. And I don't mean to pick on a specific generation, but the boomers just don't seem to either care or they just aren't aware. I'm not sure which it is, but like this is showing a fundamental discrepancy between the priorities of our generation and the priorities of the older generations. And in the name of this do-good Americanism, Connor, do you see as like our generation starts to have more and more positions of power, be that in government roles or in business, whatever it may be, more of that millennial Gen Z generations, like, are we going to start to see a reversion to some sane foreign policy trying to help make things better at home? Or do you think we're just going to continue kicking this proverbial can down the road?
Well, it's quite a big can. So
sure is.
Getting it out of the picture is going to be a tough one. So there are two ways I look at this. One of them is that you have the younger generation, the millennials, Gen Z, etc., who are showing some hope, right? They are more war skeptic. They're more foreign interventionist skeptic. They want to be more so of spendthrifts when it comes to our budget and when it comes to congressional allocations of funds. That being said, you have some hopefuls, right? You have people on the large scale things. You have Governor DeSantis. You have Vice President Vance. You have other individuals who look promising, which they could diverge from this traditional neocon, neoliberal mindset, right? But at the same time, you have a lot of new and young voices, particularly of the socialist camp, as we're seeing in the New York mayoral election recently, who would just think, no, we should just spend more money and make everything free, because what's a better vote than one that is bought? So this issue, this sickness, which is just kicking the can down the road and just pumping out as much monopoly money as we can, it's going to be intergenerational, I believe. But we need people to either right now wake up, get civilly educated and understand what the heck is going on before it's too late. Or two, we need to do something like Milei is doing in Argentina, which is he takes the can, he swallows it. It's going to hurt for a little bit, but look what's happening now. They have record low unemployment. Their economy is boosting like never before. And he's using libertarian principles of all things, right? The thing that's so crazy here in America. Oh, how those crackpots with tinfoil hats, how dare they?
Yep.
So at the end of the day, it's either we kick the can down the road, we monkey see, monkey do, right? Close our eyes, put our heads in the sand like ostriches, whatever. I'm butchering the metaphor. I don't care. We can either do that and just inflate the hurt down the road, or we can just address the issue like Congressman Massey and others have said and say, listen, this is the debt. This is unsustainable. Your children, your grandchildren, their children will have to pay for it, and they're going to hurt. Or we can actually serve Americans, which is our duty and our job, and actually try to fix this now. But is the swamp too big for that to happen? We have yet to see.
Yeah, well, and this is where, I from a show perspective, why I changed the show back at the end of 2019 to 2020 to how do we sell liberty, right? That was the entire premise of the show pretty much up until the most, couple of years or so. Like these ideas that we have, it's not a matter of trying to get people to understand that they work, right? We know they work. What matters is getting other people to take the chance to buy what we're selling and to actually put this into policy. And I've had this argument with libertarians for many years now where they'll just be like, well, did you read this book? And I'm like, dude, I've read the books that you read. It doesn't matter, because when you throw a book at somebody and say, well, if only you stupid rube, you read this book by Henry Hazlitt or Murray Rothbard, then you would understand. I'm like, that's fine. Yes, you're correct that if they were to actually read the book, digest it, embrace it, and actually carry it forward, yes, that would be better off. However, the reality is that people will not make a buying decision just by being tossed facts and figures. There has to be some emotional trigger that gets them to make a buying decision. And it's not a matter of who has the best argument. It's not a matter of who has the most features and benefits and facts and figures. I call it in the IT world that I sell in, the text and the specs. That stuff is important from a understanding why you're making the buying decision, but the actual thing that makes the person you're talking to, the actual decision maker, make a decision or a choice is there is some emotional trigger that will get them to see this is going to put them in an objectively better spot than where they were before. Like everybody knows in the world of emotion, there are two leading emotions, right? They're fear and love. And if I know I can pull the lever on one of those two emotions to get you to make a buying decision, I am way better in a position to actually push you to buying my solution versus the competitors who are trying to just toss books at you, right? And you mentioned Zoran Mandani over in New York City. He just won the Democratic primary, 32 years old, up, positioned to be the youngest mayor ever in the past 100 years, maybe it was, in New York City. And he's a devout, he says democratic socialist. I'm just going to say borderline communist, because he's actually pushing for the nationalization of certain industries like grocery stores, for example. And he's actually promoting the idea of true, what's the word? Wealth
distribution.
I was going to say discrepancy. Now I was like, that's not the word. But you're seeing right now folks like him who, yes, he's factually wrong. His solutions are horrid. They will cause pain, suffering, and yet he won a lot of Democrats to actually support him. Why? Because he was painting a vision that was all emotionally based, right? And he was both hitting on the fear side of things. Well, if we continue going down this path, it's the millionaires and the billionaires who are going to be successful. And then the love side of, and here's what I'm going to give to you, right? It turns into the guy running for class president in 4th grade. And he's like, candy every Friday. Like, okay, yeah, you beat the kid who was like, I'm going to help, clean up the school. Because nobody really cares about that. They care about getting the free candy, right? So this is where, when we, from a style standpoint, like how do we actually address this stuff and make things objectively better? This is why these conversations, Connor, are so important, because it's one thing to just, toss a spreadsheet or a book at somebody and say, here you go. This is why you're wrong, you dumb idiot, right? Versus, hey, I hear you. I see the pain points that you're feeling. And actually, you're right. This sucks. I want you to understand. I empathize with you. And here's what my solution is going to look like and why it's going to be better for you. That's why I've always said to any Republican or libertarian running for office, if you're running on an argument of like, hey, we're going to help cut taxes, get more money back into your piggy bank, whatever it may be. I always thought a great campaign strategy would be like, hey, you're going door to door, have like 100 pretend checks, right? Just make believe checks And when you're talking to that person, like ask them, hey, how much money did you spend in income taxes last year, property taxes last year? And then once they like tell you a number, like do a pretend like, hey, I'm writing you a check, and like give it to them and say, hey, you vote for me, you're going to cash this check and you're going to have $17,000 back in your bank account because that's the money we're going to save you in taxes every single year, right? That just, it makes it more real versus just saying, well, if we tinker the percentages of our income tax and our property taxes like that, what? That doesn't mean anything to your average person. So going full circle here, Connor, I know we kind of went off into the weeds in there in like a sales and strategy standpoint, but going back to the main point at hand here, when we look at foreign policy, it's one thing for people to hear the argument like, well, this is going to put America in a better spot. This is going to do this. This is going to do that. But when they actually look at the outcomes, as we were talking about today, intentions versus outcomes, they're seeing the very real outcomes making things demonstrably worse. And this is where I think we are at a position with Thomas Massie's leading the way to hopefully make things better. So I'm going to give you the final, the final thoughts here for today, Connor. Like, what would be your call to action to the folks who are listening to this show? Maybe they're inspired. They want to go out and make their world better, but they're just a little bit stuck in how to actually get some headway. So like, what would that look like? Give us kind of the blueprint from your perspective.
Definitely. So right now, I know it seems daunting, right? It seems like an impossible feat or task to perform, right? You have all these talking heads on the news networks or social media or even politicians telling you what to think, and that can be quite exhausting. Like I personally had to take week-long breaks from X and social media in general because it was just so exhausting to keep up with all the noise.
Yep. That
being said, just being a passive listener, an observer, will not better the situation, right? And what we're doing here today, having me on and we're discussing this issue, regardless of whether it's foreign policy or how to sell policy to American citizens or how to better our situation economically or otherwise, this is where we start, right? And we need to stop thinking of it as like, oh, I need to own the libs, like 2016 Ben Shapiro, facts don't care about your feelings. Well,
yeah. Sorry, his little nasally voice. I had to. Sorry.
It's okay. I forgive you. So it shows that, yeah, facts don't care about your feelings. Feelings don't care about the facts. And that is completely reflective in what we're seeing in New York today with the mayor race, right? Yep. He's literally step by step, almost mirroring what's happening in Chicago right now. Chicago had city-owned grocery stores. Look how that turned out, right? Tough on crime by defunding the police. Look how that turned out as well, right? He is basically showing the people of New York, this is what's going to happen, right? But they still voted for him. Why? Because there's a detachment. There's some sort of divide between the people and the reality of the situation. So discussions like this is number one. Number two, you might feel that you don't have a voice or no one's going to listen to you, right? Everyone has to start somewhere, whether that is posting online, whether that is having discussions and communications with people in the real life, touching grass face to face, whether that is joining local political groups or local discussions, right? If you're more libertarian, I'm sure there are a variety of libertarian groups out there. More conservative, them there. More liberal, there. So at the end of the day, you need to have these interactions with human beings, because at the end of the day, if we're going to actually educate people and have them come to a proper informed decision, whether it's economics, whether it's foreign policy, regardless of the topic, we have to actually talk to them and meet them at their level and not just, hang books over their heads. Look at this. This is what Hayek said, or this is what Thomas Sowell said. Haha, you didn't read this? How dare you? Like, no. We're all human beings. We all react emotionally, for better or for worse. We have to realize that is the currency of politics today. And once we understand that, we can accomplish so much more.
So I'll finish with this. And no, audience, don't worry. Your show is not restarting. I just want you to listen to my intro one more time, folks. Focusing on winning arguments, we're teaching the basic fundamentals of sales and marketing and how we can use them to win in the world of politics, teaching you how to meet people where they're at on the issues they care about. Welcome to the Brian Nichols Show. That is why we changed the format of the show in 2019, because you have to be able to meet people where they're at. No, that does not mean that you bring yourself down to their level and then you start justifying their policy. No, you meet them on the pain points, on the problems, so you can better understand who they are and move them them in a different direction. This is Dale Carnegie 101, how to win friends and influence people, right? So at the end of the day, folks, it's not a matter of how strong your argument is. It's not a matter of how many facts, figures, and logic you have in your back pocket to show how right you are. It's a matter of how you talk to the person, to your point, Connor, talk to the average person, understand their issues, meet them on those issues where they are, and not just give up your arguments and your values, but then help show them, hey, I hear you, I understand, and by the way, here's how our solution addresses that, right? And it's going to be a more pro-liberty solution. So with all that being said, I really appreciate today's conversation, Connor. Give folks a quick understanding of where they can go ahead, reach out to you if they want to continue the conversation. Obviously, we have your article over at Free the People. We'll include that in the show notes. But with that, Connor, hit us with those social media deets when you're not taking a much-needed Twitter hiatus.
Great, thank you, sir. So yeah, you can follow me on Twitter/X. That's at Connor_Vasile. You can also get my books, The State Knows Best, and I'm Joe Biden in His Own Words on Amazon, available now. And I'm a frequent writer for Free the People. You can go look at my work there as well.
Perfect. All right, Connor Vasile. It's been a really fun conversation. Folks, if you got some value from today's conversation, please go ahead and give it a share. When you do, tell Connor you heard him over at the Brian Nichols Show. And with that being said, we're going to go ahead and put a pin in today's conversation. So Brian Nichols signing off here on the Brian Nichols Show for Connor Vasile. We'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening to the Brian Nichols Show. Find more episodes at briannicholsshow.com.